Hello, everyone. Thank you for your patience. I'd love to introduce our next speaker, Harpreet Sahota, data scientist with Comet. Go ahead, Harpreet.
Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Harpreet Sahota. I'm a data scientist at Comet. We're building tools for machine learning practitioners and teams. I'm excited to be presenting here to you all today. Huge shout out to the Machine Learning Conference for the opportunity and to all of you for joining me here today. I got a chance to check out some of the presentations that came before me, a lot of interesting stuff. So I know you guys are out there taking a bunch of notes, and I hope I can impart some wisdom with you today. Um, we're going to be walking through 3 lessons from the field in building an MLOps strategy for your organization. So, here's a quick overview of what we're going to cover today. We're going to start off by discussing what MLOps is and dig into why it's being discussed so much in our field and why it seems like every ML organization worth its salt is beginning to invest in it. Then we're going to dive right into lessons learned from the field and how you can think more strategically about implementing ML ops in your organization. And we're going to do that by first talking about when to start investing in ML ops. You're probably wondering at what point it makes sense to start thinking about ML ops. What are some of the signals coming from your model development process that ML ops should be considered? Don't worry, we're going to cover that right here in this lesson. Then we're going to cover how to start intelligently investing in ML ops. You've probably had some success with your early ML initiatives, but eventually you're going to reach a point where it makes sense to adopt a ML ops strategy. Comes, how should you think about team structure and collaboration between the ML teams and the other business units? There's a wide selection of ML ops platforms out there, ranging from scrappy in house solutions to huge managed vendor products. Which one's going to make the most sense for you and your organization? And then finally, we're going to talk about how to measure the success of your ML ops strategy. ML ops is a developing discipline, and it's crucial to understand how to measure the success of your ML ops strategy. How are you supposed to justify to your various stakeholders that this investment is worth it and it's worth your team's time and effort? My goal with these lessons is to help you avoid making mistakes and set you up for successful implementation of ML ops at your organization. That way, you can maximize the likelihood that the work your data scientists and ML engineers do actually drive value for your business. So, if you're in the ML space and haven't been hiding under a rock, then you for sure noticed that ML ops is starting to pop up everywhere. The most prestigious publishers in our field are writing tutorials, pioneering and innovative companies are writing engineering blogs filled with overviews of how they're approaching ML ops. And we're starting to see ML ops specific job postings popping up on job boards. For many, however, ML ops is a relatively new set of ideas. So, at a high level, MLOps is a set of practices and tools designed for teams to reliably and efficiently train, optimize, evaluate, package, deploy, and monitor their machine learning models in production. Developing and deploying machine learning models is complex. Without good tooling and processes to deal with it efficiently, your team will struggle under the weight of laborious, manual, and ad hoc engineering tasks. So, we have to deal with a lack of lineage and explainability across workflows, models that underperform, models that decay, and data lakes filled with orphaned model binaries. We've all been in scenarios where we put in hours of work, but our model never makes it out of the lab or promoted to production. And these are just some of the challenges we face. And this is where an ML ops strategy and system can address a lot of the pain points that we're going to discuss. So when you're building out an MLOps strategy, you want to equally be an architect and a mason, meaning you want to approach it from both a technical perspective and a strategic perspective. While there's a ton of information available that details how to build ML ops platforms from a technical perspective, there's far less information available on how to think about it strategically. So, as practitioners in this field, we understand and appreciate that machine learning is incredibly hard and multivariate. From the problems being solved to the modeling strategies being applied, right down to the size and maturity of machine learning teams. But as leaders in the field, we're faced with a unique and difficult challenge, one that is centered around developing a plan of action, and that is strategy. In particular, we need to know when to start building our MLOps strategy, how to start building our MLOps strategy, and how to measure its value once it's implemented. So let's jump right in and talk about when to start implementing an MLOps strategy. So, to start, let's consider this quote from Chris Brossman, who's the director of engineering at the Real Real, which is an e commerce company selling clothing and accessories that went public just a couple of years ago. Chris says that MLOps is needed now more than ever as companies transition from using machine learning in an exploratory way to using it as a core operational software component to deliver value. And implicit in this quote is an extremely important point, one that's been widely written about, one that's been widely quoted that seems to be a pervasive issue in our field. Many modeling projects fail to reach production on machine learning teams. This partly has to do with the general ML maturity and organizations having trouble articulating where and how to apply machine learning to drive real business value. It also speaks to an important trend that happens as teams evolve and become more mature. Not only will your models become essential pillars for value generation for your business, but the pain and frustration your teams experience will grow as your team starts to deploy models into production. All that, however, can be solved by an MLOps strategy, but it's not always crystal clear when something is wrong or broken in your process. So, what are some pain points you should look out for? How do you know if your team is going to be experiencing some of these or when they're going to be coming up on some of these pain points? Well, Chris Brossman, who we're already familiar with, he heads up a team that's seen significant growth over the last few years. He's got over 25 people on his team at the Real Real working on building and deploying machine learning models. He recently shared a few early warning signs that could be useful indicators that our teams are ready to start thinking about ML ops. Let us run through a few of them. So, if your team suffers from inefficient workflows and manual processes where every step from data extraction to cleaning to modeling to deployment is manual or done with of code, then your team may be ready for an MLOps strategy. If your team is still copying code between projects, doesn't have a repo of useful code snippets, and is having to reinvent the wheel for every single project, then your team may be ready for an MLOps strategy. If your team is always slow to start because of long ramp up times with tooling, and you've got ML engineers having to context switch constantly between projects, say it with me, everyone, then your team may be ready for an MLOps strategy. If your team feels like their projects are always lagging when deployment time comes because it seems like supporting teams are always busy, put it right there in the chat. Stay with me. Then your team may be ready for an ML ops strategy. And that's not to mention many other symptoms, from it taking days or even weeks to retrain a model, to scaling issues where training is blocked by time consuming data transformations, to the cost of carrying crushingly high interest rate technical debt, like being locked into a simpler model due to your deployment pipeline, right down to concerns regarding lineage and traceability. For example, when a deployment breaks, how easily is your team able to tell where that failure occurred? Look, I know that many of us don't work on super large teams of data scientists. Some of us work on much smaller teams. Some of us may be on teams of five. Some of us may be on teams of three, or even the only lonely one hero data scientist. But teams of all sizes will eventually feel at least one of those pain points that we just talked about at some point in their evolution. And by the way, to the heroes out there, I feel you. I've been the only data scientist in an organization more than once. Let me tell you, even as a team of just one, I wish I understood the value of dedicating my time and my resources to at least learn about the various ML ops infrastructure, tooling, and strategies out there so I could alleviate some of the pain that I was having. All right, so let's summarize the win. When should you start implementing an ML ops strategy? So, when your team size starts approaching 10 or more people, and if you're already past that threshold and have a team that's larger than that, don't despair. It's never too late, almost never too late. Next, you want to keep an eye out for those numerous warning signs that we've mentioned. And finally, even if you're a small team, even if you're new to the field or you're not already aware of the importance of ML ops, you should start educating yourself before it is too late. Now that we know what signals to look out for and have an idea of when the timing is right, many questions remain, particularly around the how. How do we start implementing an ML ops strategy? So we know that machine learning teams come in all shapes and sizes, both in terms of their composition and their procedures. Each team will handle data sources, modeling strategies, and taking models into production in their very own unique idiosyncratic ways. Some teams deliver mission critical models serving real time predictions to customers. Others may plow through offline batch jobs, generating predictions that inform internal business decisions. Whatever your team looks like, I can guarantee you that it is in your best interest to consider some general principles for how to start implementing an MLOps strategy. Our friends at the Real Real and Ancestry.com have got us covered. They've shared some awesome lessons with our team at Comet, and I'm happy to pass them along to you. The first lesson pertains to team size and structure. What's the critical mass in terms of team size where it becomes in your best interest to invest in someone to manage your MLOps strategy full time? And once you've hit that critical mass, what's that structure going to look like? Who's the person responsible for implementing ML ops on your team? And what qualities do they possess? So, this person, who we'll just call an ML ops architect, is likely going to be someone with a DevOps background who's had some prior exposure to machine learning workflows. Although it's recommended, exposure to machine learning, not necessarily like a hard and fast requirement, because you can always bring smart, intelligent people. You can always bring them up to speed through robust training programs as part of the onboarding process. And eventually, your platform is going to become complex and it'll be an important product in and of itself. And you'll have a lot of different talent that's plugged into it. So it's worth having someone entirely dedicated to building and optimizing your platform. Chris at The Real Real suggests starting to think about hiring a full-time ML ops architect once the number of people building models on your team reaches 10 or more. The second lesson has to do with creating value for your business using machine learning. This has so much to do with the internal structure, communication, and collaboration between your ML team and the business stakeholders. And it is a crucial component to get right. If you're developing a machine learning organization, you're probably thinking, how can I create value out of machine learning for my business? A key to successfully delivering value to your business using machine learning is to bring data scientists on as strategic partners. Data scientists and business experts each have a piece of the puzzle. Data scientists know which problems are feasible to approach with machine learning. They know the abilities and limitations of machine learning, but maybe they don't deeply know your business or your industry or your customers. Business folks, on the other hand, they're going to have that deep domain expertise. They're going to understand the organization. They're going to understand the industry, the business model, and the customers. They've got that savvy and acumen to know how to find that business value, but maybe they don't understand the limitations of machine learning. The key is you got to bring these two personas into the same room to connect their respective pieces of the puzzle and identify which problems are both feasible from a machine learning perspective and create massive ROI for the business. And this ties into another important lesson for implementing an MLOps strategy, which is communication and reporting of machine learning team initiatives outside the core ML team. A common pain point we've seen in teams are data scientists working in silos. And when that happens, they're missing out on indispensable collaboration with business stakeholders and domain experts who possess valuable insight into how these models will drive business value. So, when crafting your MLOps strategy, it is imperative that you build into the strategy a consistent and transparent reporting structure so that the stakeholders outside the machine learning organization can track modeling progress and the subsequent impact on key outcomes that you are targeting as an organization. So the team at ancestry.com, they're building models that scan billions of documents and identifying new information sources to add to the lineage records for individuals that are using their products. Their NLP team lead, Suraj Subravetti, has shared a bit about how they've solved the problem of reporting and communication. The team at ancestry.com, they track their model development process live and they transmit those live model development updates to live reports that are then shareable and accessible by anyone who wants to access them across the entire company. They're not limited to just the data scientists or the data science team. On top of that, they have regular monthly meetings where the machine learning teams present their research progress to business stakeholders so that they can realign for the next research and development push. The key takeaway that Suraj leaves us with is that we should design a reporting structure so that stakeholders outside the machine learning organization can track modeling progress and impact on key outcomes. So we've talked about team structure and reporting, but what about tooling? When it comes to internal tooling and processes that support the machine learning workflows, most of the teams that we've spoken to, they mention two values that rise above the rest, and that's modularity and reusability. I know we all love a little adventure, but one place I wouldn't recommend visiting or exploring is the pipeline jungle. You may have heard of this place. It's got pipelines all over the place, pipelines for ETL, pipelines for training, pipelines for evaluation, pipelines for deployment. And if this is your current situation, I want you to know that it's possible and it is highly recommended to build reusable modular components that standardize the way these projects are run. Some areas where Chris Brossman recommends considering building these reusable components are data generation, data transformation, data exploration, experiment tracking, model evaluation, and deployment. So each of these steps is organized into modular, reusable components, which form the foundation of the ML process at the real. When executed well, this enables continuous training practices that will lead to much faster R&D and durability of the platform. All right, so even if you built out a machine learning platform that's robust, reliable, and remarkable, as your team matures, your ML ops architect is still going to feel growing pains. And sometimes these growing pains come with very expensive remedies, with vendors writing up pain pills to solve all number of ailments. And there seems to be an infinite number of tools on the market today, ranging from massive end-to-end platforms to highly specific open source modular tools. It can be incredibly noisy and challenging to parse out all of the options and identify the right choice for your team. Despite all of the noise in the space for MLOps tooling, there are still some rules and heuristics that'll help you approach the selection process with confidence that you will make the right decision for your team. Chris at The Real has a useful framework for thinking about vendor purchases, which I'm happy to share with you all here today. The first point is to consider that you should look for tools that solve specific problems that your team is experiencing. So, how do you do that? So, you want to make sure that you've gathered information from your team about what their pain points truly are. You want to ask which tasks are manual. You want to find out where cycles are taking longer than they should. And you want to identify the largest opportunities for improvement. This is going to help you dramatically narrow your focus so that you can find the right tool for your problems. Because the last thing you want to do is purchase a tool that tries to solve all the problems under the sun, because those are often expensive and rarely correlate to your team's specific needs. The second point is to develop a data driven evaluation and selection process before engaging with the vendors. So it's hard to quantify, communicate, and convince stakeholders of the value proposition for improving a workflow, right? So the best approach here is to create a data driven evaluation framework. And you do that by clearly specifying the features you need to have, by identifying specific workflows that you want to see addressed, and have your team test and verify with the pilot. This will help provide clarity when it comes to making a purchase decision. Finally, structure your proof of concepts to be as organized, thorough, and fast as possible. Life is short, the craft is long, so it's in your interest to run the swiftest POC you can. Don't let this process become drawn out, laborious, or have internal priorities keep pushing the evaluation down the to-do list. Otherwise, nothing will get done and you won't have anything to test. So you want to avoid spending time half evaluating a tool, because at the end of the pilot, you won't have the robust data you need to make a good decision on whether to buy or not. Try your hardest to condense this evaluation into 1 or 2 sprints. When it comes to platform building and vendor selection, it's a good idea to value flexibility in the tooling. Technology is evolving rapidly. Best practices are still forming, and your team is evolving and changing rapidly as well. So you want to try to avoid vendor lockup. And the way you do that is by using modular tools or tools that come with built-in mechanisms for easy data transfer. That way you don't get stuck again in 18 months. Priorities become more sophisticated. So how do you start implementing an MLOps strategy? Here are a few key takeaways. Habit of keeping your code, pipelines, processes modular and reusable. And you want to hire an MLOps architect once there are more than 10 people building models on your team. You want to bring data scientists and business stakeholders together to connect their respective pieces of the puzzle and help keep communication transparent between the ML team and the stakeholders. And you want to look for tools that solve specific problems, and you want to value flexibility above all. Finally, let's talk about measuring the value of your MLOps strategy once it has been implemented. Measuring value will take different forms at different stages of the model lifecycle. And that's because MLOps platforms need to support both experimental and automated workflows. So let's get into this. At a high level, an experimental process for building a machine learning system involves pipelines with various components, everything from problem identification to data collection to data cleaning, all the way to feature engineering and model training. And it's an iterative process. We can spend weeks or months in the process of improving model performance. And as these arrows here indicate, this is an iterative and experimental process. So expect to experiment. You might completely revisit the model requirements. You might need to collect more data. You might need to go and label more data. Because of these types of feedback loops, experimentation is necessary. So you should account for that. So a lot of the machine learning work we do is non-deterministic and highly experimental. So how do you measure the value of a platform built to support something that's a moving target? Are you supposed to measure the value of a platform solely based on its ability to get you to your desired model evaluation metric? Maybe a better way to think about it is measuring the value of your strategy is its ability to unlock faster speed and greater scale of experimentation. So at Uber, which is home to one of the most well-known internal ML platforms in the world called Michelangelo, they have some useful metrics to track efficacy of these experimental workflows. So, compared with not using the platform you've built, you want to assess the marginal impact on time to model ready data set. So that's the time it takes to collect, clean, label, engineer features, and transform data. You want to assess the marginal impact on the time it takes to production ready models, and that involves everything from research and development, experimentation, optimization, and testing. And you also want to look at the volume of experiments over a fixed period of time. Essentially, how many hypotheses is your team able to test in a fixed amount of time? So when you're in the development stage, these indicators will give you a good idea whether your MLOps strategy is making the impact your team wants it to. However, things start to change once you get ready to go into production. And this is because once you have a production ready model, the steps between finalizing that model and getting that model into production should be as automated as possible. So, in most cases, the deployment process will consist of something along the lines of testing, packaging, model deployment, potentially with the shadow model period where traffic is gradually transferred to the new model, of expected performance, monitoring, alerting, retraining, and this should all become a fairly largely automated process. The one area of the deployment pipeline that will be hard to automate will be production monitoring, where data scientists may need to dig into data drift and other production issues to diagnose whether what's happening in production warrants a retraining or not. So, how should you think about measuring value here? The Michelangelo team at Uber has a CI CD system built for continuous model serving and monitoring. And they've adopted more conventional measures of DevOps success, and that is engineering hours saved on manual tasks, right? So, comparing where engineers are spending cycles before and after the implementation of your ML ops strategy will give you a good sense of the utility and value that it is providing for your team. So, let's go ahead and recap this. So, what we've covered so far is the fact that adopting an MLOps strategy is a crucial and challenging set of decisions for any organization. But my hope is that we can take away the key lessons and insights that some of the best machine learning teams in the world have shared with us so that we're well prepared to tackle this for our teams. So, the first lesson, there are clear warning signs and pain points that will emerge to indicate that it's time to start investing in an MLOps strategy. So, we've touched on a number of them during this session. Ignore them at your own peril. Second, it's important to build clear lines of communications between business units and the machine learning teams. This is going to help set your teams up for long-term success, ideally with a dedicated ML ops architect leading the way. Thirdly, you want to make sure that you build reusable platform elements to standardize workflows and be data-driven and efficient with your vendor decisions. And finally, when measuring the value of your platform, you want to optimize for speed and scale of experimentation around model development and time savings and automation around model deployment. All of these lessons will set you on the path to success. And it's an important thing to start walking that path. As a final note, I'd like to offer a couple of thoughts about where this field is headed in the near future. So, in the near future, all of these tools, processes, and best practices will hopefully become standardized. And as the organizations who adopt them, they're going to benefit from outsized returns with their machine learning initiatives. Your adoption will impact your team's success and your success in attracting top talent, as well as the success of your organization for years to come. My friends, it's been an absolute pleasure to be here with you all today. Once again, we are Comet, and we help data scientists and machine learning practitioners at some of the world's best machine learning teams build better models faster by providing a suite of ML ops solutions. We're committed to enabling data science teams, helping them track, compare, explain, and optimize experiments and models across the entire model development lifecycle. You can catch a glimpse of just how we do that by giving us a try. Go ahead and pull out your phone, take a picture of this QR code, scan it, whatever, have us open as a tab on your phone so you can remind yourself to go and try Comet, or you can visit tinyurl.com/try Comet. With just a quick pip install and a few lines of code, you're going to be well on your way to managing experiments like the best of them. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure to be here with you today and to share the wisdom we've learned from some of the best ML teams in the world. Shout out to the organizers of the conference and the other speakers for making this such an awesome event. Let me know if you have questions. Thank you again, friends. My name is Harpreet Sahota. I'm a data scientist at Comet. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Go ahead and scan that QR code. My friends, cheers. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Harpreet, thank you so much. Great amount of insights and information. We appreciate you bringing that to this audience. And the audience, please continue to put any questions you may have for Harpreet. Currently, he will be in the virtual audience for the rest of the afternoon, and he'll be able to answer any questions that may pop up as the day progresses. Harpreet, thank you once again. And everyone, we are going to take a quick stretch break at this point, and we will return at 10:45 at quarter of the next hour with our next presenter, June Andrews, Senior Director, Search Sciences with Nike. Harpreet, thank you so much. Take care.
Take care, everyone. Bye.